Okay, so there's a couple things I want to point out to you about the tank, all right? So around the shoulder of the tank, we have some numbers and letters stamped into the metal, all right? There's two things that I want to show you, all right? So if we look on here, do you see on your tanks where it says 3AL? Can you see that on your tanks? Okay. Yeah, the AL is the type of metal, all right? That's aluminum, all right? Now, why is this important is because the different metals of the tank have different buoyancy properties, right? So with an aluminum tank, we'll need to use more weight than we would with a steel tank because they're more buoyant, all right? The other thing I want to point out is after that it should say 3,000, okay? That is the working pressure of the tank when using PSI, which is the imperial unit for pressure, pounds per square inch. And the reason it's important to know this is because when we turn the air on, we want to make sure that the number that our gauge or our computers are reading is the same number as the working pressure of the tank. Otherwise, how are we going to know if it's full? Okay, good. All right, so that's enough about the tank for right now. All right, go ahead and grab your BCDs for me. All right, now, this is kind of cool that we all have different types of BCDs, okay? Because you get exposure for different types of equipment, right? Because things are, well, as you'll see, things can operate differently, all right? Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the BCD on the tank, all right? Now, depending on the type of BCD that you have, this may or not be a little bit different. All right. Now, when you put the BCD on the tank, there's two things that you need to concern yourself with. The one is the alignment of the BCD with the tank. So basically what this means is the opening of the valve should face the back of the BCD, okay? So this is correct alignment, right? Now the other thing is the height of the BCD and the tank, okay? Because you don't want it so low that the regulator is staying in the back of your head, but not so high where it's gonna slip off. All right. So generally speaking, you want to make sure that the straps are, touching the tank and it's not super low. Okay. Now I'm going to show you where to put it on mine, and then after I do mine, I'm going to sort of recommend where I think a good height would be for your BCDs. Okay. So if you take a look here, I'm dropping it down over the top of the tank and making sure both straps are coming in contact with it and checking the alignment to make sure. All right. Now, when you have this style of buckle, which Christy is what you have on yours, okay, there's a correct way to tighten it. And if you don't tighten it correctly, there's a possibility your tank may fall out before, during, or after the dive. Okay. So for this one, you actually unweb it a little bit from the last slot, okay, in order to actually tighten it down. Pull out some slack here as much as you can. And then once you've pulled out that slack, put it back through this last slot and then brace the tank and push the strap. Okay? And because I have two, I'm going to do that with both of mine. Like so. Okay? Very good. All right, let's go ahead and look at yours now. Yeah, so go ahead and, let's just, from where it is right now, let's go ahead and just drop this down over the top of the tank. And you have two straps on here, so both of those are going to need to get dropped down. Good. Now, if you look here, this neck seam here, think about where your head is going to be in relation to where the regulator is going to be. So right now, this actually would probably make a pretty good height for yours. All right. Now, what I would generally do, since yours is going to be a little bit more slippery than mine, you want to take this out of the last slot, like so. Okay. And then may I? So what I generally do is recommend you can use a leg here to sort of brace the tank. Brace the tank here with your hands too, and then pull as much slack as you can out of that strap. All right? You want to give it a try? Since you're the one doing the assembly there. Maybe put it a little bit lower because this strap is going to... Yeah, there you go. That's good. Yeah, don't hold your hand here, otherwise... Yeah, there you go. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to tighten it. Now put the strap back through this last slot that you took it out of. And then, put it back through there. And then down. Very good. Very nice. Good. Okay. Yeah, then you have that one. Yep. Just make it nice and snug as you can. And perfect. There you go. All right. Now, we want to check to make sure it's tight enough. So I'd recommend doing one hand here, one hand on the strap, lift it straight up and give it a wiggle. And if it doesn't move, it's nice and tight.
Awesome.
Sound good? Okay. Perfect. Okay. Now, for you, Kimmy, what we're going to do, yours is a little bit different, like I said. So you have this style of buckle here, right? So what happens is this D-ring, the clasp slips through this D-ring, and the D-ring goes into these little notches. So there's your loop right there, Okay. Now, because you only have the strap is so low here, this part of the BCD actually is meant to go right around the very top of the neck of the tank. All right. So just so you know. And then once you have it where you want it, you have to slam this down. Okay. And it may be a little snug, so you may have to use a little bit more force than you would think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why. That's kind of why I turned it around for you before. And actually, with this BCD, it kind of gives it a nice gauge of like the height on it too, right?
So that's good.
Yeah, that's good. And then tighten this up using this, part of the strap to tighten that on the neck. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Tight
Yep.
as
Yep.
can go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's probably
Good.
that's probably the size it can go. And then that clasp.
You do have to use some.
Yeah, I know. That's why I told you. And then, yeah, there you go. Perfect. And then do the same thing Christy did. Give it a little lift and shake. Perfect. Good. Nice and tight.
Sweet.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so that is assembling the BCDs. All right, next up, let's move on to the regulators. Okay, so everyone should have a regulator next to them. All right, very good. So this whole thing is a regulator. Okay. However, there are certain parts to it as well. So I'll briefly go over that so we all know that we're talking about the same thing. All right. So the part that's in my hand right now, this is called the first stage. Okay. So the first stage, right? This part that's in my left hand right now, this is our second stage, right? And specifically, this is our primary second stage. All right. This one here is also a second stage, usually called an octopus. All right. And then we have this. This is our inflator hose, okay, which connects the inflator on the BCD. And we have a gauge, okay, or pressure gauge, all right? Very good. Okay. Okay, you guys, so just watch me for a moment. So when it comes time to put the regulator on the BCD, it's a pretty universal standard that our second stage hoses go over the right side of our body, and usually any other hoses we have go over the left, right? And that's no different here, all right? So this part here, because this is a yoke regulator, this is called the yoke screw. Go ahead and undo the yoke screw, and there'll be a dust cap that you'll need to get out of the way. And just put it out of the way. Very good. Now, unlike a tank, whenever there's a dust cap whenever a regulator is not in use, the dust cap should always be on. All right. Now, please just watch me for a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to seat the first stage into the valve. As you can see, there's a little depression in here. Okay. Turn it around so you can see it. Right. There's a little depression in there. All right. And we're going to tighten down the yoke screw. Now, we don't want to use our whole hand. 2 fingers and thumb only. All right. So when we go ahead and tighten that down, as soon as it stops moving, just with 2 fingers and thumb, that's as tight as it needs to be. Okay, we don't want to tighten it any more than that. All right, would you two like to do your, Christy, why don't you do yours first here? And just make sure everything is rounded the way you want. Okay, so I think we're gonna have to do here, I believe yours is set up to go the other way around. So let's take a look. Yeah.
Other way around?
For example, what I mean is the tower, this is called the tower,
gotcha.
right? This is meant to go down. Right?
Okay.
Because you can go either way. So see how your hoses are now on the size they need to be on? Yeah, yeah. There you go. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, good. Okay. All right, Kim, you want to do the same? I believe it's the same with you as well. I believe your tower is, no, I believe the tower is meant to go down the way you had it before.
Down the way I had it before.
Yeah, so here's the tower here. It's meant to go down like this. Yeah. All right, so you go ahead. Yeah.
That just goes out of the way.
Well, it should.
Should we reconfigure that?
Yeah, it's one of those things that's where, depending on the BC that you have,
Now?
yeah, otherwise we're going to be struggling here and it's not going to look good.